Let's talk about success. In this video, as I explore the theme of success, I'm going to utilize a word that I think is going to be very important here. Because in this video, I'm going to create a contrast between childhood survival based success that is brought into adulthood and what I would argue to be healthy success. Because if you are raised in a survival based childhood, or if you were raised in a survival based childhood, and you bring that entire dynamic into adulthood, the likelihood that you are chasing any endeavor for success, but within the dynamic of survival with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, is very high. If instead you were given a healthy childhood with healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation, your why is probably going to look a lot different. So the theme, success. The word, why. What are you doing and why? What are you hoping to achieve and why? Are you chasing success because you were raised in a survival-based childhood with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and you were taught that you would only be worthy if you achieve X, Y, and Z, and that is somewhere out there, meaning that until you achieve that, you're not worthy. So understand that that means that you learned that your worth is extrinsic. It is external. It is somewhere out there in something out there. So imagine, for instance, one of your parents or both of your parents taught you that you would only be worthy if you achieved X, Y, and Z out there. Well, then I would say that the why of what you're doing is to get worth extrinsically, externally, out there. Because your parents taught you that you would only be worthy if you got X, Y, and Z out there. That's from the survival-based fight, flight, freeze, fawn childhood. Now, what if instead you were raised in a healthy childhood? Again, no childhood is perfect, no parent is perfect. Every child comes out of childhood with some level of marring and scathing, whether severe or mild. That's the reality of it. But what if you were raised in a healthy childhood with healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation, and because of that, you actually got to develop a healthy ego state with a healthy sense of self? And if you were to go after success, it would be because it's what you want. But let me make this very clear. In a boundaried way, you're not doing it to achieve worth, self-worth. You're doing it because it's what you want to do. There are some times that I see on the internet people talk about how they are ready to quit doing whatever it is that they're doing. They're ready to give up. They don't really feel like it's working out for them. When you do something because you actually want to do it, and the dynamic is boundaried, you're not worried about what other people think about you. You have an intrinsic sense of self-worth. Your sense of self-worth is inherent. It is within you. It is determined by you. It is not out there. It's in you. If you are doing something that you enjoy, it's essentially effortless. If you are doing something instead because somebody else not only taught you that your worth is somewhere out there, but they simultaneously doubted you. So essentially you have this kind of like fuck you on your shoulder, and you've got to, at least you feel like you've got to fucking run through walls to prove yourself. I can imagine that that would get really fucking exhausting. And probably not something that you would want to show up to on a regular basis, because you're doing it to kind of like prove to other people that you can. So that's more so unboundaried. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. You can do whatever you want to. If you want to spend the rest of your life in fight mode, in survival, in fight, or in people pleasing mode, whatever you choose, that's fine. You're allowed to. It's not healthy. And the likelihood that you will experience at least one episode of burnout is very high. Why? Well, I would argue that you're not doing what it is that you actually want to do. What you're doing is not actually authentic for you. Instead, you just have this program running in your mind. Oh, I have to prove to mommy and daddy or these people that I'm worthy. The worth is what I'm going after rather than the enjoyment of X, Y, and Z. I don't actually enjoy this. I'm just terrified of not being worthy. So I'm doing all of these things to achieve external worth. And again, it's not good or bad or right or wrong, but it is the difference between a life that is actually lived for you and a life where you're just waking up on a daily basis. I'll show you guys. Just over and over again. If you have an externalized, extrinsic sense of self-worth, yeah, you're going to wake up regularly. I'll show you guys. And you might not even realize it either. But that's the point of this video, to help people understand that you might be chasing success in an endeavor in any area. My question is, why? Not only why, what are you doing? What are you doing and why? Are you in survival, in fight mode? Are you fighting for your worth because you learned that it is somewhere out there in something or someone out there? So you wake up on a daily basis running after it, which is funny because like you keep running, but where is it? It keeps like going further and further away from you. I personally believe that that's kind of how extrinsic, externalized self-worth works, where instead the opposite, intrinsic, internalized self-worth, where you determine yourself, you validate and approve of and accept and love yourself, and you don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks about you. It's actually none of your fucking business, because that's a matter of what I would argue to be boundary violations. What are you going after and why? Are you chasing extrinsic, externalized self-worth because you learned a belief in a survival-based childhood with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that the only way that you would be worthy is if you achieved XYZ out there? If you got into the greatest fucking Ivy League university in the world, if you married so on and so forth person, it doesn't matter. People that are raised in survival with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and never do the work to heal the dynamic usually chase things because they learned that they need to fight for their worth, and their worth is out there, and they need to break their fucking back just to, get that. When instead, if you allow yourself the space to have healthy development with healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation, yeah, you may have not gotten it in childhood, but you can give that to yourself now. Your entire path, your entire endeavor of success will look drastically different because you're actually doing it for yourself. Yeah, a lot of people go throughout their lives, and you can hear them too. You can hear them talk about it. They're like, I fought for it my entire life. Well, yeah, if you're in survival with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, you're going to fight for it your entire life. But does it actually have to be that difficult? A lot of people communicate the path to success, and they talk about ingredients of like difficulty and struggle and all these different things. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you're boundaried and you actually want it for yourself? You're not trying to get worth out there. Your worth is in here. My worth is in here. Your worth is in you. You may have not been taught that. This might trigger you because you're like, well, wait a second. I was taught that my worth is out there. I was taught that I'm only worthy under the eyes of some higher power. I know. I know that a lot of people were taught some wild things about worth. When your worth is intrinsic, when you determine yourself, when you realize that you don't have a single fucking thing to prove to anybody else, things start to change. A lot. You might like stop everything that you've been doing throughout your entire life and be like, wait a second, I haven't been doing this for me. And the fascinating thing is that in and of itself might trigger people too, because a lot of people were raised in survival with fight, flight, freeze, fawn to believe that they are to do things for other people, for their parents, for a higher power, and that it's selfish to do things for yourself. I encourage you to question the hell out of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if I get, at least one comment down in the comments section of, somebody that is, religious saying some stuff against what I'm saying. I get it. You could say whatever you want to. All are welcome here. We can discuss things. We can, and we can be, boundaried and respectful about it. But the reality is, if you were raised in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, in survival, and you learned that your worth is somewhere out there, the likelihood that you are exhausting yourself chasing success to prove yourself to somebody else is very high. I mean, look at the first one itself. You're fighting for your worth. You're fighting so hard for it. We may have learned that life is just inherently that difficult, but is it actually? Or are we just caught up in some fucked up matrix that many people are very unaware of? Question the hell out of everything. Yes, absolutely. If you are considering quitting, one, honestly, maybe you just need a fucking break, and that's okay. Do whatever you want to do. Gauge yourself. But my question is, whatever it is that you are doing, why are you doing it? If it's the case, are you aware that you may be just living in the dynamic of survival with fight, flight, freeze, fawn? Are you doing what you're doing because you believe that your worth is out there somewhere and you have to exhaust yourself to get that? Are you doing what you're doing because somebody doubted you and you're like, I'll fucking show you? You can. You can do that. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just, in my honest opinion, not healthy based on everything that I've learned. What are you doing and why? Do you enjoy it? That is, of course, as long as it is healthy. You're not like fucking people over. There are many paths of success out there that you can do. Self-determined. It's healthy. But the question is, what are you doing and why? And if you were to know that if what you're doing is, survival based and you're doing it to fight for your worth, and you were to discover that that is unhealthy, how would you feel about that? Because, I mean, from what I understand, it's not healthy to exhaust yourself doing something that you don't even enjoy simply because somebody taught you that you were unworthy and you would only be worthy if you got X, Y, and Z out there. Nonetheless, to understand that your worth is intrinsic. A lot of people don't like this because then they can't control you and violate your boundaries. They would rather you believe that your worth is external because then they can control you and take advantage of you and use you and fuck you over and all of that stuff. Yeah, no, people don't like it when you take your power back and you're like, well, wait a second. Actually, uh, my worth is intrinsic, Karen. Yeah. My worth is intrinsic. How does it feel to understand that your worth is intrinsic? And it's probably not going to happen in one session. It's probably not going to happen overnight. Because the second you say that to yourself, you might even look at yourself and be like, who the fuck do you think you are? And these just end up being all of the voices that contribute to that program of, no, your worth is out there. Get back in line. Yeah, it's all just familial and societal programming. That's all it is. What are you doing and why? Start with that.